Welcome back to the channel, folks. Mr. H here for my review of Captain Marvel. So what we're going to do in this review, we're going to talk non-spoilers first, then get into spoilers. And I'm going to kind of break this down in each part as the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm going to give some praise, then I'm going to say what I thought, could have been done better, what I disliked, and then just out and out say what I really hated about the movie. I feel that's potentially a good way to go about this review. So, in terms of kind of the overall nonsense that we need to get out the way for this movie, review as well as just generally this movie, am I like a misogynistic guy and all that kind of stuff? No, I've reviewed female-led movies very high. And also, just to get straight out with it, I would say that you guys would want to see this, and I can recommend it to you if you're a die-hard Marvel fan. So I'm not out and out just crapping all over this. I went in objective, unbiased, and as a movie reviewer, I looked at the technical aspects, I looked at what worked and what didn't work for me personally, and this is how I've come to my review, which you will now see. So, in terms of non-spoilers, let's talk about the good. Well, the cast is solid. With exceptions, of course. The good in terms of the cast, we've got Nick Fury's Samuel L. Jackson. Very good. And, I mean, yes, he's Samuel L. Jackson, and it's someone which we've seen time and time again, but he really was having fun with it, and I liked that. Ben Mendelsohn. Good God. That guy, he's one of these creeper actors, and what I mean by that is, it's not someone which a lot of people know by name in terms of household names. However, when he's in a film, even if it's a bad film, he is a standout. He is such a good actor. And, Captain Marvel is no different. He's very good in this. His Talos, General Talos, was superb. Annette Bening's The Supreme Intelligence was fine. And Jude Law's character was good. His acting was solid. It was on point. It's good to see Jude Law back, actually, doing a lot more stuff, because he hasn't really been in a lot of movies of late. So it's very good to see Jude Law back. The man can act, and he did, a great performance here. I wouldn't say it was, Oscar or anything like that, but he was one of the highlights of the film. Lashana Lynch, who played Maria Rambeau, she was very good for what little screen time she was actually in the film. Now, in terms of other things which I can kind of fall under what was good, the film looked fine. This is kind of a toss-up between it actually being bad or being good. The film was very competently put together from a cinematography aspect and things like that. However, and this is where I can kind of lead off into sort of the bad, I guess, it could have been directed by anyone. There was no visual style here which was unique to the directors at all. And it was a real shame, because, look, Marvel movies have such a high budget that they're always going to look fine. A movie should look good, it should have, decent cinematography, and it should look competently put together. It's not really high praise, or praise at all when you say that it looks good. It met the lowest standard of what a Marvel movie should look like, I believe. And that's, like I said, where we start talking about the bad. The score for this film was really nothing. It was just this electronic score. It didn't really hit any major high notes, didn't really pang on my emotional strings or anything like that. It was a very kind of hit or miss score. I think some people may notice it, some people may not. And that's not to discuss the soundtrack, which we'll discuss realistically in spoilers, because the soundtrack is where we then start to talk about the subtext of the whole movie, which is, again, kind of part of the bad and the ugly, unfortunately. So yeah, the score was fine. It was not particularly great at all. It was just electronic stuff. Like I said, I think some people will probably like it, will probably dislike it, but for me, it was nothing. It was really nothing. It was just this odd, small electronic note here and there. And notice I haven't mentioned Brie Larson yet, and I will have to start to talk about her, and now in the ugly section of the movie. She was good in the first act. She was good in the first act because of how she was portraying the character, but as the film progressed, and as her story progressed, her character didn't change. And when part of her growth in the film is her finding herself, but the characterization doesn't change, it's a real issue. So in the first act, she's on Hala, obviously, we know this. She is the Kree warrior, and she's very, very wooden. She's very stoic, emotionless, whatever, a whole bunch of verbs you could use. But it worked. It worked, her interaction with Jude Law worked, and then we get into the second and third act, and it just all falls apart. She's just incredibly wooden, emotionless. And it's, this is a movie which has been touted by the filmmakers as being a feminist movie. Now, if sending a good message to children is just simply to, be completely wooden all the time, absolutely, then yeah, great, I guess you've accomplished something there. But there's not really a sense of who Carol Danvers is in this film. I don't know who she is, because her characterization didn't grow with her character arc. She does have a character arc, but her characterization doesn't change. And so I'm left not knowing who she is. I don't know this character. And this is, like I say, where we get into the ugly of the film. It was just bad characterization. And overall, the film was very bland. And it goes hand in hand with the film just looking competent. This film could have been made by absolutely anyone, and it wouldn't have made a difference. Now, for those die-hard fans of Marvel that have seen absolutely every movie, you're going to want to watch this, but you're not going to take my recommendation anyway. You're going to go and see it. So, enjoy, I guess. I hope you enjoy the movie. But I will say this, for those fans of Marvel that have seen every single movie, just look at it with a little bit more of a critical eye, because it's not as good as it could have been, and that's a shame. This character has been built up in all of the marketing as the most powerful, the strongest. And if we remove, the whole agenda, the two sides, those wanting the movie to fail and those that, hate the people that want it to fail, we remove all of that from it, her characterization wasn't built up in the story, in the film, as it was outside in the marketing. And that's a shame, because now, having finished the movie, and it's a long film, it's over 2 hours, I don't know who she is, and I don't really care. And it doesn't match the marketing, which is a true shame. Because I don't want any movie to fail. I prefer to have left this film going, yep, I spent my money wisely, and it was a decent film, and I can highly recommend it. Because obviously that's a better use of my time and my money. But I can't. So like I say, for die-hard fans, you're going to go and watch it anyway. So my recommendation is worthless. But let's get into spoilers now. And this is where we can kind of discuss, again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's some bits and pieces which I've missed in the non-spoilers, and I'll touch in here. And it is what it is when we start to do these reviews, a little bit unscripted, straight from the dome. But anyway, so let's talk about the good. Again, the Supreme Intelligence and how they worked in part of the source material for Captain Marvel was fairly decent. Annette Bening being the Supreme Intelligence, but then also being Captain Marvel, worked. I didn't mind it. I didn't hate it. I still would have liked to have seen the floating head, but in the film they do tease that no one has seen the true form, so they could be saving that for a future movie if they want to go absolutely weird and wacky, and I like that. I really did like the Skrulls in this film. I thought the prosthetics worked. Again, Ben Mendelsohn carried the film, I think, in my eyes. Ben Mendelsohn and Samuel L. Jackson were superb in this. And Ben Mendelsohn, his Skrull leader, Talos, was awesome. I could watch a whole movie with them, finding a new home, which is what they ultimately want to do. The Kree and the Skrulls are fighting this war. The Skrulls don't want to have a war, they just want to bugger off and live in peace. So it works. But I also think it is a bit of an issue with respect to this Skrulls just one in peace when we then look at the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, of how they're going to work the Skrulls back in. I'm a bit surprised by that because they are just peacekeepers, basically. They just want to have a home and bugger off. So yeah, that was good. The Skrulls were good. The prosthetics were good. And overall, the shape-changing ability and how it looked and things like that on screen was decent. It was fine. In terms of just the overall character arc and who Brie Larson's Carol Danvers is and things like that, it was just bad, and it was not very good. She absorbs, and again, this is good because it's worked into the origin of the source material origin, but it's twisted ever so slightly. Carol Danvers becomes all this superpowered hero because she absorbs Marvel's new core, the new engine for lightspeed technology or something along those lines, and it's coming from the Tesseract. It's energy from the Tesseract. So it's interesting to see how they've worked the Infinity Stones back in, but like I said, it's kind of neither here nor there. It's fine. I thought it was pretty decent, but I think a few people will probably roll their eyes at it. But it's also inbuilt plot armor for how she has probably survived the Thanos snap, and then also how she's going to beat Thanos in the future as well. Now, in terms of, the bad, I guess, if we're talking about spoilers, all the nudge, nudge, wink, wink moments were just atrocious. Like, Marvel fans, diehard fans will really like it, I think. Samuel L. Jackson lost his eye because a flirkin scratched it. That was it. Fine, I guess. Really anticlimactic. I guess it's one of those things where you just go, well, how would it have lived up to everyone's expectations? There's so many things that you could have done which were better than that. Ultimately, it probably wouldn't have lived up to everyone's expectations anyway, but there was definitely stuff you could have done better than that. The whole twists and turns of the movie, you saw coming a mile off. It was fine. I thought Lee Pace's Ronan the Accuser could have been used to a much better effect, but again, neither here nor there. Really, it was fine. It was good to see him back. I thought Ronan the Accuser was a great character that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy, so it was good to see him back, but I would have liked to have seen him do a bit more. Now let's talk about the ugly and the bad, and let's get on to the subtext. So this film does have an agenda, right? And that's not just me being some misogynistic white male and all this kind of shite. It does have an agenda. It's a factual thing. The filmmakers have already confirmed it. And there's a lot of subtext in this film, which if you weren't, if you just switch your brain off and you enjoy the film, you're not going to notice it, but it is there. When Brie Larson lands in the blockbuster, she shoots off potentially one of the most iconic macho men in history. She shoots off a mannequin of his head. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, there's a stand of him, and I believe it was Sharon Stone, I think, off the top of my head. Shoots his head off. The woman is there left unscathed. And there's little subtle interactions here and there throughout the movie which really do, put men down. And not only that, again, but there's actually quite some heavy subtext in the song choice. First and foremost, there's What a Man is playing whilst Carol Danvers approaches the wimpiest looking guy I've ever seen in my life. And I guess, if I really have to spell out what that's trying to tell you, the subtext was lost on you anyway. Whether you choose to believe it or not, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. But there is subtext there, and the agenda is there. It's already been confirmed by the filmmakers. Ultimately, those that wanted to see this film will see it anyway. This is not required material for Avengers Endgame. I really don't care about Brie Larson's Carol Danvers. It just wasn't a good characterization. And it's not to absolutely hate on her. Can she act? Yeah, probably. She wasn't particularly great in Skull Island, and in here she was very, very wooden. Whether that was built into her character and she was written that way or not, I don't know. Because initially, yeah, she should have been quite wooden, but she does experience the character arc, but her characterization doesn't change. And that's an issue. It is an issue. It's my issue anyway with the film. So I'd be keen to hear your thoughts though. So I know this review will probably just get bombed with dislikes and trolls, probably from both sides, because I haven't massively hated on it and I haven't massively praised it. It's fine. Before, I kind of preempted all of this by saying what I said at the start. You can believe what you like about my personal views and opinions on women and all this kind of nonsense. I don't have an issue with women. I don't have an issue with female-led movies. I've reviewed female-led movies much, much higher in the past when they're a good film. This, sadly, just was not a good film. I cannot recommend it to the casual Marvel viewer. For my channel and what I do here as a movie reviewer, I have seen every single Marvel movie out there. This wasn't a good one. It really wasn't, and it's a shame because Marvel have been on a huge high recently with very, very stylistically unique films from great filmmakers. Taika Waititi and Thor, for instance. I know it's not to everyone's taste, but when you have something so stylistically unique to then go into something super, super bland, it makes a big difference. It really does impact your viewing experience of the film. And that's even to say about the Russo brothers. They have a great and very quite unique style that they brought to the Marvel Universe. And again, by comparison, it's just bad. So anyway, there you go. That's my thoughts. Please drop yours down below in the comment section. Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been Mr. H. Take care.